Welcome back. So, our topic today is who are the Quraysh? This is a very important topic. If you can unlock who they are, or even what are they, um, that would be very helpful. Big credit for this is a contributor known as the Linguist, who's appeared on our channel before. So, big shout out to him and thank you so much for all of the information that you have given. And I think your idea is a good one and stands up pretty well. We previously speculated on the earlier channel Sneakers Corner that Quraysh may be connected to Cyrus the Great because in Old Persian it's very similar, Quraysh, but there is a better explanation. Firstly, a reminder of a couple of slides on what the Masjid al-Haram referred to according to Paul Ellis, and I'm in agreement with him on this idea. So the Al-Masjid al-Haram, according to Paul Ellis, is the masjid on the Temple Mount. If you look at 2 Chronicles 3:1, it was where Solomon built the first temple. Then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. It was on the threshing floor of Arona the Jebusite, the place provided by David. And secondly, we have Exodus 26. The idea there is that it refers to the tabernacle in the wilderness. The Ark of the Covenant was kept in the Holy of Holies, which was a cubic room. God's presence, the Shekinah, was believed to be there. So we have lots of overlapping things. The significance of Mount Moriah, the Kaaba being a cube. Also, the temple was first a tabernacle in the wilderness. It was essentially a tent, and then it became more established in the form of a stone temple, as it were, in or on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Okay, so this is something we have speculated on before based on the biblical text, but we were a lot closer than we imagined. Before we get into it, we need to answer this question. What is KTU 1.4? Probably means nothing to you, but this is the tablet that was found during the first excavations in the great priest's house at Ras Shamra. Its measurements are 26 centimeters by 22 centimeters. It consists of several fragments and over 400 complete or partial rows of text. It is an important piece of information. It's basically a Ugaritic tablet on which we have Ugaritic written on it, of course. And guess what? The word Quraysh is found there. So, what is the Ras Shamra? Well, basically, that's a large mound at the site of the ancient city of Ugarit, where we get the language name from, Ugaritic. Okay, and that's obviously in um, Syria near Latakia. Okay, so that's where it is, and this site has been excavated since 1929. So we find this intriguing text, Quraysh Malk Ab Shanam, the residence of the king, father of years. Bit of exposition first. The king here is the father god El, and his residence is obviously not only a palace but also a temple, because gods live in temples, not just palaces. So there is this suggestion here that there's a meaning there in reference to temple. Okay, the literal meaning of the Ugaritic Quraysh is tabernacle. Now, if we consider Hebrew, we have Quraysh, Melech, Ab, Shanam, and reconstructed then back to the Ugaritic, presumably, is Quraysh, Malk, Ab, Shanam. So that's likely how the Ugaritic was pronounced. Okay. And we helpfully have been given this pronunciation guide for the Ugaritic, as we just mentioned. So we have Quraysh, Malk, Ab, Shanam. We know the first vowel is U, due to the Akkadian cognate Kershu, meaning tent shrine, among other related meanings. So that's interesting. Tent shrine. If we think back to this slide here on the left hand side, you can see that the tabernacle was like in that form, a tent shrine essentially. Okay. The related Akkadian term Karashu, meaning camp, also points to this. Okay, so you have related terms here pointing to the same idea. So we have a tabernacle, tent shrine, temple. These are all related meanings, and they're all connected to the word Quraysh. Okay, this is hugely significant. Now, we need to look at Surah 106, and I'm obviously going to use Saint Murad's translation from Arabic into English, and it's very short. By the name of Allah, Al Rahman, the Merciful, for the familiarity of Quraysh. Their familiarity is the caravan of winter and summer. So let them serve the Lord of this home, who has fed them from hunger and secured them from fear. I think the key bit there is the fact that in the first line you have Quraysh, and in the second ayah or line, so let them serve the Lord of his home, or you could potentially put the Lord of this house. Okay. Now, serve the Lord, that there's potential there for other senses of the word serve there, I would argue, especially if the focus here, the Lord of this house, is referring to God. So serving the Lord could potentially mean worship the Lord as well. Okay, so with that out of the way, if we read Surah 106, 1 to 4 with the Ugaritic Quraysh in mind, the Quraysh are the people of the temple, i.e., Jews, or primarily the temple itself. So Quraysh can be thought of primarily, first of all, as the temple. And by association, the Quraysh can refer to the people of the temple. Now, we only need to think of Abdul al Malik and his buddy al Hajjaj. We know from the Hebrew, Hajjaj comes from Hagag, which is a pilgrim to specifically the temple in Jerusalem. So the word Quraysh and Hajjaj is actually connected. It's basically people who are of the temple, go on pilgrimage there, or perhaps even work there. So our linguist offers us this sense of the meaning of the second ayah. Thus let them worship the Lord of this house. Okay. This house is obviously the house, Bet al Makdas, the holy house. Okay. Now, fitting nicely like a velvet glove is A.J. Juice's paper Victory at the Mecca, page 27. He says, indeed, the mosaics in the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus show an operational temple with curtains of brocade drawn open. Top right image is the only image here on the slide. Whether it might be based on the Little Temple or is a contemporary representation of the building over the foundation stone, we can recognize both a cube, which is Kaaba, and a dome. Okay, so if you look at the bottom part, you can see clearly a Kaaba, and just above it, a little dome. Now, you can tell, I think, that this is not this great dome that you currently see on the Temple Mount. This is a much smaller affair, but you can definitely see the the Kaaba-like appearance at the base and a dome at the top. AJ Juice goes on to say, it appears difficult to imagine how the artist would depict the building other than what they had witnessed with their own eyes. This temple depiction is also distinctively Jewish. Indeed, it resembles depictions on second century Jewish redemption coinage. Look how similar that image is from the second century to what is depicted in Damascus. If we go back to the previous one for a second, the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. Do you see how similar it is? We see both a Kaaba and a dome. So if we compare them side by side, the only major difference I would argue is the addition of a dome on the top. Okay. So on the left you have the mosaics in the Umayyad Mosque. On the right you have a second century Jewish redemption coinage. In the Warsh we read in Surah 106:1, turn to the Quraysh, reading the same as the Aramaic there. The Arabic al-fi can have the same meaning of turn to, an instruction to face the temple during prayer. This is coming again from the linguist who's given me this information. Reading Quraysh as the Ugaritic Quraysh adds to the poetry of the surah and unlocks the actual meaning. So, turn to the Quraysh is basically turn to the temple. That's what it's really all about. It's an instruction to face the temple during prayer. Back to A.J. Juice then. Again, from his paper, his most recent paper called Victory at the Mecca, he says, and this is in relation to Mecca or Mecca. What about the valley or center of Mecca? The Quran continues that God had protected them in the center of Mecca after their victory. And he it was who held their hands from you and your hands from them in the valley of Mecca, center of Mecca. After that, he had given you the victory over them, for God saw what ye did. These are they who believed not and kept you away from the sacred mosque, as well as the offering, which was prevented from reaching the place of sacrifice. Supposedly, those who did not believe, i.e., some Arabs who had stayed behind and counted on defeat, had kept the Muslims away from the place of sacrifice. It essentially says that they are not at each other's throats once in the center of Mecca. He goes on to say, we have matching primary evidence, including the reinstatement of sacrifices on the Temple Mount, for example, in an after the fact denial of the arrival of the Messiah. The contemporary Eliezer bin Kalir wrote around 630 AD that Ben Hushiel's building project came to an abrupt end. The holy people will have a short respite, for Assur, the Persians, will permit them to found the holy shrine, and they will build the altar and offer up the sacrifices, but they will not have time to establish the sanctuary, for the Messiah had not yet come. After 3 months, the commander in chief will return and come against him, the Messiah, son of Joseph, and will kill him in the little temple, and his blood will congeal upon the rock, and the land will mourn, every family apart. It tells us that there had been a small Jewish temple built, likely over the foundation stone. We know that Nehemiah ben Huziel was killed around 617 AD, so this fits in with that. To continue, in fact, we have multiple primary sources that attest to Nehemiah bin Huziel being the Messiah of the house of Joseph. Perhaps the Messiah of the house of David has not yet arrived, and if so, we can likely find the missing miracle man and his entourage among the Arabs in the Quran that should have helped but stayed behind. So, to summarize then, we have a little temple above the Well of Souls, which is the center of Mecca, on the Temple Mount. Okay, so you imagine there was a little temple on the top, underneath is the Well of Souls. So the little temple is built on the site of the old Holy of Holies. So now we have a sense of where Mecca was. It's on the Temple Mount. We now have a sense of what is meant by the Quraysh. The Quraysh is the temple, and by extension, the people of the temple. Okay, this is huge stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments below, and hope to talk to you very soon. Bye bye.